Aziza Akbarulina continues to inspire you on a journey. And what makes her feel inspired? Magical views, ancient history and delicious food. There is something that Aziza really misses on her journey. This is her family. From time to time, she falls out of the process and her thoughts take her far away. Even though, well, now my thoughts are somewhere. Wait, I need to gather my thoughts. But then she quickly comes back and is ready for work again. So what are the most memorable points of the previous episode? Amazing Karatau Nature Reserve with its rare plants and animals, the wise foremother of all Kazakhs, Domala Kana, and the mysterious mosque in the underground cave. Today our caravan came to the ancient city of Turkestan, and that means that there will be a little history and a lot of cheap shots from our cameraman. During the heyday of the Great Silk Road, Turkestan, back then it was called Yassi, was one of the main points of trade in Central Asia. The Silk Road played a tremendous role in the urbanization of southern lands of Kazakhstan.
Торговый путь, который принес с собой.
The trade route brought together with it not only goods, but also ideas, religions and other things, but also, of course, material means, the appearance of money, and so on and so forth. A huge number of people got interested in settling around this city. And then these villages, small settlements, especially those that were located in the most advantageous places, they turned into cities. That is how apparently Turkestan was formed. So if we hadn't had the Silk Road, cities would have appeared much later. Having a little understanding of antiquity, we will move on to the present. Before moving the capital from Almaty, Nursultan Nazarbayev considered the candidacy of a 1,500-year-old city for the capital's location. And this is historically justified. Turkestan was the capital of the Kazakh Khanate in the 16th, 18th centuries. But in the 1990s, the city was too small and not ready to take on the capital's functions. Now Turkestan is home to more than 155,000 people. In anticipation of Expo 2017, the infrastructure and maintenance of historical monuments were significantly improved here. Now the city is visited annually by more than 1 million tourists. A significant part of the city's guests are pilgrims who are attracted by local shrines. We went to the main one, the Mausoleum of Khoja Akhmet Yassaui. Meet Khoja Akhmet Yassaui, the poet, one of the first mystics in the Turkic-speaking world who lived in Yassi in the 12th century. There is a legend. Once the Prophet Muhammad was eating persimmon and one fruit constantly fell to the floor. And then he heard a revelation that that persimmon was intended for a certain Ahmed who would live 400 years later. And then the Prophet Muhammad asked, "And who will give this fruit to him?" Aristan Bab responded to the request, and Muhammad gave him another 400 years of life, so that Aristan Bab could later pass along the fruit. To whom, you would ask? To Khoja Akhmet Yassaui. We will tell you more about Aristan Bab in the next series. According to the legend, Aristan Bab was given 400 years so that he could fulfill the promise to the Prophet to pass along the persimmon to Akhmet. In addition to persimmons, Aristan Bab gave a boy from the city of Yassi a deep knowledge of Islam. Yassaui founded the Sufi community in Turkestan. Sufism was then very popular among the religious elite. The followers of this community were called Sufis because they wore long robes made of coarse wool. From the word Suf, that means wool, the name of this Sufism originated. This religious direction was close to Yassaui because it preached asceticism and high spirituality. Yassaui himself was very strict to himself. Having lived up to 63 in a common world, he went to live in an underground cell near the mosque. Khoja Akhmet became a recluse in memory of the Prophet Muhammad, who died at 63 years old. Under the ground, the saint lived until his death. He died in 1166 and was buried with great honors in a small mazar. The large mausoleum which we now see was erected only 233 years after the death of Yassaui on the orders of Tamerlane. In 1398, Tamerlane defeated the Golden Horde and its Khan Tokhtamesh. In honor of this event, he decided to build a memorial complex on the site of the dilapidated mausoleum of Yassaui. The mausoleum was built in record time, in over 10 years. Why did Timur really need this?
Как масон правильно писал, он преследовал при этом и политические цели. И, может быть, даже больше политические, чем свои вот исконные какие-то.
As Masson correctly wrote, he also pursued political goals, and maybe even more political than his personal ones. Although they say that some Sufis contributed to the fact that he chose Akhmet Yassaui as his spiritual patron. Because before committing all his main life deeds, he came to Turkestan and spent the night at his grave.
Обязательно приехав сначала в Туркестан и переночевав в его могиле.
Timur emphasized that the mausoleum was his creation. Above the entrance to the building, there is an inscription. This holy place was erected at the behest of the ruler, beloved by Allah, Amir Timur Guragan. May Allah prolong his command for centuries. They say that Tamerlane himself took part in drawing up the draft of the future mausoleum. In particular, he determined the size of the building and also gave instructions on some decorative details. Now tell me how to build a building without a foundation, so that it stands for 7 centuries, so that tiles and glaze are preserved. After the modern restoration, all the tiles collapsed a year later from rain and moisture. Yes, the secrets of some past years have been lost. The dimensions are really impressive. The mausoleum is a huge rectangular building with portals and domes. The height of the arched portal is 37.5 meters, the height of the main dome is 44 meters, and the diameter is 22 meters. The thickness of the outer walls is 2 meters, the walls of the central hall are 3 meters. In 1405, Tamerlane died and work on the construction of the mausoleum was suspended. Remains of wooden beams and holes from scaffolding are still visible on the walls. When you enter the mausoleum, the first thing that catches your eye is Kazan. Now imagine that it is not in this place. That's how it was for more than half a century. In 1935, Kazan was taken to St. Petersburg as an exhibit. For a long time, visitors to the mausoleum of Akhmet Yassaui saw a ritual vessel only on the photograph. Many people have contributed to the return of the relic. The role of 2 people, Yakin Jurabekov and Uzbek Ali Janibekov, should be emphasized especially. Jurabekov worked as secretary of the Turkestan District Executive Committee and constantly wrote letters to all possible authorities. And Janibekov, being the Minister of Culture of the Kazakh SSR, went to Moscow to negotiate. There was even a 3-day strike on the steps of the Supreme Council of the USSR. Kazan was returned after 54 years in 1989. And we were all brought there. This was just the time when Kazan was returned. You know, we felt pride. Well, maybe not pride per se, but some kind of satisfaction, you know. The Across Central Asia program cares about expanding your horizons, so we'll tell you how Kazan appeared in the Yassaui mausoleum in the first place. Tamerlane ordered it from the master Abdulaziz ibn Sharafuddin. He cast a cauldron of 7 different metals: gold, silver, copper, bronze, lead, zinc and tin, and set the date to 1399. The diameter of the cauldron is 12.5 meters, the height is 1.7 meters, and the vessel weighs 2 tons. On the edge of the cauldron, texts of 19 ayats and 19 surahs of the Quran are inscribed. Why was the cauldron used? No, they didn't cook meat in it. Sweetened water from the cauldron was distributed to the worshippers after Friday prayers. Water from Kazan was considered sacred. It turns out that one worshipper took the name of the cauldron literally. Since it is called Kazan, it means that a one-year-old foal should be cooked in it. He sold a yearling and put in the Kazan the money earned from the sale. The tradition has started. People began to use the boiler as a container for donations. Myra Rakimbekova shares what circumstances in this regard made her feel uncomfortable.
Потом, когда в другой раз приезжаю, я вижу, что сверху сделали...
Then the next time I came, I saw that they covered it with some huge lid on top with an ugly lock. I was so outraged. Then they decided that this is not a good idea and took it off. I don't know, call it however you want, but it was indecent, unethical. Then they removed it altogether and simply banned to put any donation into it. You know, I think this was the right decision.
Запретили делать эту территорию для садака, что, собственно, и правильно, понимаете?
In April 2019, the news spread across Kazakhstan. During the construction of the eastern bathhouse next to the Yassaui Mausoleum at a depth of 2 meters, human remains were discovered. Scientists have suggested that the remains date back to the 16th, 18th centuries. Old-timers said that once there was a cemetery near the mausoleum. The townspeople tried to bury their loved ones closer to the mausoleum. Guide Myra Rakimbekova explained to us why people did this.
До сих пор бытует мнение у людей.
People are all mercantile, and they still believe to this day that if you are lucky enough to be buried in the holy territory next to the saint, then in the next world you will be judged less. You just don't know where this cemetery is, but I know. Now I'm just afraid to go there. And who doesn't know about it is walking right on top of it.
А кто не знает, ходит.
Inside the mausoleum of Khoja Akhmet Yassaui there are many gravestones. 186 famous historical figures of the Kazakh people, Khans, Beys and Batars are buried there. Here are the remains of Abulay Khan, Kazbek Bey, Bogenbay Batar. However, from the scientific point of view, only the remains of Abulay Khan have been studied. The remains of the Khan were delivered to Moscow. There they made a cast of his face, determined his identity, then the relics were returned to Turkestan and reburied. By the way, I remembered that I hadn't taken cool Instagram photos for a long time. And no restoration work can stop me. So come here and take cool photos, upload them with the hashtag across Central Asia and get prizes. In the mausoleum, we came in contact with a huge part of the history of our people. And now we are going to meet another witness of antiquity, Sauron, to the small homeland of Yassaui. We drive 43 kilometers northwest of Turkestan and find ourselves in a medieval fortification. It turns out that when they carried out excavation works in Sauron, they did not find evidence of the pre-Mongol period, although the city is mentioned in written sources of the 10th century. How did it happen? We decided to ask the expert. Probably some kind of natural environment changed. Something happened. Maybe the water supply system of the old pre-Mongol city fell into decay, and it moved to a new place. We came to the conclusion that this city, as well as another city we have in Kazakhstan called Jand, were nomadic cities. The question arises, did we get there? It turns out that 3 kilometers from here are the remains of that pre-Mongol Sauron. Now the settlement is called Karatobe. As we found out, Sauron residents were running away from the scarcity of water and wanted to solve the problem of irrigation in a new place. Water was especially needed for irrigation of vineyards and orchards. In this regard, Sauron residents invented special irrigation tunnels. Walking through the ancient city, be careful not to fall into the well, because they used to be everywhere here. They connected tunnels along which water flowed from the mountains, remaining cool and clean. I still do not understand how it was built before. They didn't have Google. This is so interesting and strange. A little later we learned that Aziza is sitting on something that is not a well. Almas Odabayev told us that the KRs, or special irrigation tunnels, are a system of underground clay passageways through which water flowed into the city. These tunnels were not made on the surface, so that the water from them did not evaporate.
И строили ее мастера, специалисты, и для того, чтобы
It was built by masters, specialists, and in order for them to be able to carry out this work, to breathe from time to time, they made vertical wells for air on different intervals. But these are not wells for extracting water, but for ventilation. But besides these special irrigation tunnels, there was another miracle of the world in Sauron. We have a photograph of the 19th century which depicts the minarets of Sauron. Even from the photo you can see that they are a unique sight. And even in the 16th century, when the famous poet and historian Yassi lived in Sauron, the fame of swinging minarets boomed in the steppe. Yassi wrote that when people drove into the city and saw the towers swing, they were very scared, because it seemed that the minarets were about to fall. So what was the engineering secret of this optical illusion?
Дело в том, что между этими гульдастами, как он пишет, минаретами,
The fact is that between these guldastans or minarets, there was a log on a chain. And when the tourists, caravans, people came in, someone up there slowly rocked this log. No chains are visible. This is a physical law, and when a log is swinging between these two minarets, it seems that the log is not swinging, but the minarets do. That is how this effect was invented.
И вот этот вот эффект, ну, понимаете, он был придуман.
Another architectural feature. If you look closely, you can see that the walls of the city are incredibly thick. This was done to keep the defense. In the 14th century, Sauron was a military fortress. Previously, trade caravans passed by these walls. Now, caravans of tourists who do not always behave appropriately.
Итак, а сейчас будет минутка чистоты от Азизы Айбадуллиной. Дело в том, что в этом месте нету никакого...
So now there will be a moment of cleanliness from Aziza Aybadullina. The fact is that in this place there is no security. People trust other people, so let's do it the right way. And take it to the trash. Friends, it's not that difficult. For example, I saw and drove up to Stonehenge. And there are no fences, no police, nothing. And people just realize that it is indecent to push each other. They just have such small shields that indicate that you can now go further. There is even no rope, and no one is crossing beyond those shields. Sauron existed until the beginning of the 18th century, and later the city was completely destroyed. Someone says that the great geographical discoveries due to which the Silk Road ceased to function are to blame. Others believe that the city was destroyed by the lack of clean water. Be that as it may, in the 18th century, people began to move from the city to neighboring prosperous Turkestan. In general, having traveled to all these historical places, I came up with some parental life hack. At least for myself, I definitely decided that when my son will take Unified National Test, instead of forcing him to sit and learn these boring facts, I take him with me around Kazakhstan, show him all this beauty so that he better remembers the material and passes the UNT. Use it and don't thank me. As we drove to the next point in our route, we met camels. They walked calmly along the road and chewed grass. If you do not look at the asphalt and cars, it seems that you were transported to the Middle Ages, and these camels simply fell behind the caravan. And Sucksoul very much fits into this old picture. Camels love to eat its leaves and branches. But it seems soon through the human efforts, a camel's delicacy can quickly disappear. We are now in a Sucksoul forest, but I like to call it a Sucksoul grove. And you all know that Sucksoul has now been banned from use. And why banned? For what reasons? No one explained. We will correct this. Sucksoul is a desert plant. In southern Kazakhstan there are up to 6 million hectares of Sucksoul groves. Depending on the species, the Sucksoul reaches a height of 5 to 7 meters and has very long roots. The roots penetrate the ground and draw moisture to feed the shoots from the depth of about 30 meters. Sucksoul leaves resemble scales. This is how the plant adapted to the lack of moisture. When a plant blooms, pale pink to raspberry-colored flowers appear. The largest Sucksoul populations can be found in the deserts of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, in China, Afghanistan and Iran. The fact is that Sucksoul helps the soil get rid of erosion. And if you do not want to start living in one continuous desert in the name of love for barbecue, then stop burning bonfires on Sucksoul. There is a wind erosion in progress. This is a process during which the upper, most fertile soil layers are destroyed and carried away. Erosion violates the natural ecosystem of the area. If a person continues to cut down Sucksoul forests at the same speed, the fertility of the land will decrease and huge damage will be done to agriculture. In Kazakhstan, there is a good initiative related to the introduction of the beneficial properties of Sucksoul. Since the plant prevents desertification, Sucksoul seedlings were planted on the dried bottom of the Aral Sea. It is planned to plant about 8 million seedlings in the salt desert in the next 10 years, and by 2030 they plan to plant 500,000 hectares of forest. This project is aimed at preserving moisture in the soil and fixing the mobility of the sand. Despite the fact that Sucksoul is listed in the Red Book, I know for sure that there are regions in Kazakhstan where there is no gas and Sucksoul is the only fuel source. But in such regions, the collection of this kind of Sucksoul is allowed. This is called woody debris. That is, it is already fallen tree branches and in principle it can be used. Otherwise, no collection of the Red Book species. Sucksoul wood is the best fuel in quality. It surpasses wood of birch, oak and even many varieties of brown coal in calorie production. For a long time, Sucksoul was the only fuel in Central Asia, and after the introduction of a moratorium on the cutting of Sucksoul in the south of Kazakhstan, a wave of indignation swept. Now officials and the people agreed it has become legal to harvest dead wood from 5 to 7 cubic meters per yard. But if you sell Sucksoul, then you will receive a fine in the amount of 25 minimum calculation indexes. Sucksoul is in special demand in the summer at the time of barbecue. They are sold both in bundles and in boxes. We recommend that you refrain from buying Sucksoul and report points of sale to law enforcement agencies. It is clear that Sucksoul gives this indescribable smell for meat while frying, but it is not a reason to start destroying Sucksoul, so we will be left without it in the next 10 years. I think that it is possible to wait and be patient. No one will suffer if instead of Sucksoul, people use some other, more common tree. To summarize, the ban on the collection of Sucksoul in Kazakhstan will last until 2023. By the way, you can be prosecuted for this case. But if by 2023 reserves of Sucksoul will be restored here, then the ban will be lifted. So let's cross our fingers and wait. Aziza speaks of collecting and cutting down healthy trees, and it is better not to wait, but fight against violators of the law and work on the revival of the former number of plants. That's all for today. In this episode, Aziza assessed how Turkestan has changed with the status of the administrative center of Turkestan region. We learned for what purpose Tamerlane built the Mausoleum of Khoja Akhmet Yassaui. breathed the dust of antiquity at the ancient settlement of Sauron, and in the finale of the program we found out why there is a ban on cutting and selling Sucksoul in Kazakhstan. If it was interesting, keep traveling with us. It's easy to find us through the hashtag across Central Asia.